So the Tower of Nero is finally out, and I just want to do my review. This will probably be a longer video, so I'm going to put a list of all the stuff I'll be covering, so you'll see what this video entails. I'll also say when the spoilers are about to start, but I thought I'd start with something really simple, which is the cover. Hope you can see this. This is the UK version, so it's different, and as always, it is nowhere near as good as the American cover. The Wolfmen, the Psychocelify are a bit weird since they don't really play a major part in it. And it's not my favourite in the Trials of Apollo series. Yeah, the Dark Prophecy is probably my favourite cover, like the Festus, and it looks much cooler. And next I wanted to remark on the shortness of the book. It's only like 39 chapters, which, in case you're wondering, the Hidden Oracle is also 39, the Dark Prophecy is 42, the Burning Maze is 47, the Tyrant's Tomb is 42. And I can't help thinking there's definitely a pattern there. But yeah, so it's shorter than the other ones, which I don't really like because it does feel too short. There definitely could have been more plot, I feel like. Although, having said that, a lot of Rick Riordan books don't exactly excel on the plot. His writing is definitely more character-based, and I like that, but I just wish there was a little more plot to it. The entire series itself doesn't really have as big stakes as like Percy Jackson and the Heroes of Olympus, and I think that's intentional. You can't keep big stakes up, otherwise they don't feel real. So I like the smaller stakes of the Trials of Apollo, and I also think that with all the Percy Jackson Disney Plus series, I think they won't ever do Trials of Apollo. I think they'll do Percy Jackson, and if that's successful, they may do Heroes of Olympus, may do Heroes of Olympus, but after that I don't think they'll do any more, because it just isn't big enough. Unless Rick Riordan comes up with more book series which have even bigger, then they might do it. Or if it's really big success, if everything's a big success. But I don't think they'll go further than the Heroes of Olympus, and they certainly won't do Magnus Chase or the Kane Chronicles, because they just feel too small and they're more like offshoots. That's not saying I don't like them, but I just don't think that Disney would allow that or want to do that. So I'm going to get into spoilers now, so you've been warned. Please, if you haven't read the book, go read it now. It's really, really good. I would recommend it. I would say probably 4 stars. I mean, that's good. I love it, but it's definitely not the same quality, in my opinion, as Heroes of Olympus or Percy Jackson. So spoilers from now on, and I'm going to start with something really light, the references. Firstly, the Star Wars reference from Will Solis, which I loved because I love Star Wars, and knowing that Will Solis is a Star Wars fan, well, it's nice to know. But on a bigger note, I'd just like to quote Dionysus here, and I'm sure you've seen it already, but on page 100, he says, "Chiron has an emergency meeting with a cat and a severed head, whatever that means." And the first time I read it, I was slightly confused, and then I did a double take, and I was like, oh my god, that is Mimir and Bast, and that was really cool. Then later, on page 328, Chiron speaks about it, and he says, "We were discussing a mutual problem," which makes me so excited. There's gonna be like an actual crossover, like instead of just the first chapter of Magnus Chase or that Demigods and Magicians thing. This is going to be a proper thing, hopefully, because there's a mutual problem, and that's going to be clearly like a bigger threat. So that sets my mind spinning, and I'm sure I'll be theorizing it for many months to come. Going back to the shortness of the book, I'd just like to say the fight with Python was amazing. It was really dramatic, and I loved it. It was brilliant. But I thought it was too short. I was expecting this big multi-layered conflict between Apollo and Python, but unfortunately that didn't happen. And I can sort of see why. They'd already had the big climax with Nero and Meg, and to stretch out the Python fight would have probably felt too much to the reader. It would have felt like too much, but that's the problem with having 2 villains in your book. It's something you have to get over somehow, and I think Rick Riordan handled it well, but it still felt too short. And I think there's a balance there between what I want as a fan, as in a longer Python fight, and what is best for the reader, which is a shorter Python fight. And I think that links back to the bigger mutual problem. I think a crossover feels like fan service, but if it's done well, I think it could be really good for the reader. Another thing I felt like was not expanded enough upon was the fight between Meg and Nero, and that psychology manipulation. I wish that had been expanded more upon. I wish Nero had suddenly actually persuaded Meg to betray Apollo, fight him even, would have been incredible, and I would have loved that. But instead it was just, oh well, I'll go onto your side now, it's all fine now, whatever. Once again, I still think it was good, but these are small details, and one of the things I loved in the book was the comparison between Meg and Nero and Apollo and Zeus. That comparison between the two almost pantheons, how Apollo described the 12 Olympians Nero was raising. And Apollo definitely made the comparison between the two. And it was weird. It was very well done how right in the moment when Apollo was being made god, he didn't rebel against Zeus. You wanted him to. You wanted him to rebel because you knew Zeus was cruel. But he didn't, and that's important because he left that chapter on a very strange, almost sinister note of how Apollo was rejoining this almost corrupt pantheon with a corrupt leader, Zeus, who I think has been his character evolution, even though we haven't seen him in the Trials of Apollo basically at all. He's evolved a lot from the angry head of the gods in Percy Jackson and Heroes of Olympus to this almost, it's kind of abusive father to Apollo. And it's very interesting. And I certainly think that story is not done yet. I don't think it will be addressed immediately, but it left the story, the series, on a very strange note, a subtle note. You may not have noticed it, but it was strange. And now I want to address the final line in the book, which I thought was also very interesting. Apollo basically says, anytime you want to put your emotions into a song or poem, know that I am smiling on you. We are friends now. Call on me, I will be there for you. And that is very interesting. It's very, very interesting and deep as well, what it says about religion. Rick Riordan has always hinted, there's all the gods exist together almost, the people who believe in the gods created them, and it's we created them out of our imaginations almost. That sounds a bit cruel, but I don't mean it a cruel way. And I always thought, to be fair, it was a joke. In Magnus Chase, for example, there's a reference to Jesus. I'm pretty sure Thor makes a reference to Jesus or something and how he had a fight with him or something. And I took it as a joke, but it's interesting how Rick Riordan suggests, especially at the end of this book, it's very interesting how he suggests everyone exists together. And that's hinted in the Kane Chronicles, especially if you look back and look at the underworld stuff. I think in the Serpent Shadow there's this lawyer who goes to the Egyptian underworld, and Sadie and Carter ask why is he there? And their father replies that the lawyer probably believed in some of the Egyptian myths, and that's why he's there. And then he says something else, or maybe it's not him, but someone else, I think someone says this, that anyone who doesn't believe in the gods at all, there's no afterlife for them, because that's what they believe in. So it's almost saying, whatever you believe in is real. Whatever you believe or create or imagine is real. And the end of the book does say that if you are experiencing trouble, you should, pray to Apollo. You should put your emotions into a song or a poem, and he will smile on you. He will help you through it. He personifies almost the song or the poem or whatever, the creativity that you imagine. And it speaks volumes about religion and myth and what people believe and spirituality. It's very, very interesting. But on to something lighter, I'd like to talk about the Grey Sisters, which I thought was an excellent addition. I think Rick Riordan certainly said in an interview, I think, that he wanted the reader to know where all the characters would be at the end of the book, and he wanted this to tie up the current sort of Percy Jackson Heroes of Olympus. He wanted it all to tie up in a neatly knotted something or rather, I don't know. But that also meant the inclusion of other characters like the Grey Sisters, which I thought was amazing, and I loved. They almost had a development where Apollo, we got to see through Apollo that they want to tell the prophecy. So he's just sitting there. Yeah, I love that bit. It was brilliant. But having done that, I want to comment on something deeper again. I want to comment on the sexuality, what it says about sexuality in all the Rick Riordan books. And I think it was first really explored in the Heroes of Olympus with Nico. But then it just went crazy in Magnus Chase. I don't mean that in a bad way, but it went full. Like, it was non-existent in Percy Jackson and most of Heroes of Olympus. But then Rick Riordan obviously just had this inspiration. And I definitely like how everyone's represented, I guess. There's a lot of representation. That's good in a book. Sometimes I think it goes a bit too far and it sort of goes too much representation. It almost doesn't feel realistic. I'm not saying that representation is a bad thing. I mean, I'm speaking as a straight white male, but yeah, it's a tricky subject. And we also learned in the book that Piper is, I guess, bisexual. I mean, she liked Jason. I think it's very interesting how a lot of Rick Riordan includes all these young people exploring their sexuality and their feelings, their new feelings, because you might discover, oh, well, actually, no, I'm not heterosexual, I'm actually homosexual, and, that it needs to be told, that needs to be taught that it's fine, and those feelings are fine. But finally, in this video, I wanted to talk about what's next for Rick Riordan. Obviously, I've talked about the crossover, the sort of the mutual threat, I think. That is really exciting, but I don't think that will be immediate. And I think in an interview, Rick said he would be looking at single stories almost. And in the Tower of Nero, we get information that, and I like this, that Nico and Will Solis are going into Tartarus again, and which is crazy, but they're going to go and look for Bob, which is brilliant. Though they say there's only one person calling them, and does that mean Damazon has died, or he hasn't reformed yet? That's interesting, and I think that will definitely be a story where we see Nico and Will go through Tartarus, untold horrors, etc., find Bob. It'll be really amazing, really cool. So that's one thing. But then obviously the elephant in the room is the Percy Jackson Disney Plus series, which I talked about earlier on, how I don't think the Trials of Apollo will ever be a Disney Plus series, unless everything is really successful and it makes a lot of money. But I don't think that will happen. I think Percy Jackson, I think it will do pretty well. I think it will do pretty well, though there's obviously going to be 5 seasons, 1 per book. And I'm really excited for The Lightning Thief. It'll be a long while yet before they finish it all. But I would love to see Heroes of Olympus. I think the stakes are way higher, and that gives it surface. That I think that translates better to a TV series. And that's almost why I don't think Trials of Apollo will be done, because I won't be as big as a money spinner, I don't think, in terms of a TV series for a wider audience. The fact is, people watch things more than they read things, which is a sad thing, because reading is great and I love reading, but it's the truth. And Disney will be looking at the Trials of Apollo, if they get this far, of course, and they'll say, this is, I want to say, almost too niche. It's an amazing story, but it'll feel like, to a wider audience, a step down from if they do Heroes of Olympus. And I also said how I don't think they'll do Kane Chronicles or Magnus Chase, because they, once again, they're too niche, and I think they don't, Percy Jackson, the Greek gods, and to an extension the Roman gods if they get to the Heroes of Olympus, I think they will personify, they'll iconize, they'll be iconic of the new franchise, the new Disney Plus franchise. Obviously, if it does amazingly, I think they obviously will. Disney will see it as a moneymaker and they'll expand onto Kane Chronicles and Magnus Chase. But the most likely thing is Heroes of Olympus, maybe. But unlikely everything else. But I think I'll make a separate video on that if I have time. Things are definitely really busy at the moment. I picked a bad time to start a YouTube channel in my GCSE year, but I'm working through it, and I'm looking forward to Troy by Stephen Fry, which is coming out at the end of October, which I'm really excited for, and I'll be doing a couple of videos on that. Not as many as the Tower of Nero, but like a couple. So just let me know in the comments what you think of this amazing book. It was really good. What were your thoughts? What did you like about it? What did you not like about it? Please tell me in the comments below. I'd really love to hear. So I hope you've enjoyed this longer video. It's probably got darker throughout the video as it's now dark outside. I've been filming this in the evening, so I'm sorry for that if you can't see me at all and all the things are pixelated and whatever. But I hope you liked the video, and I'll see you